Welcome to week 2. We're gonna get stuck in working on this, continuing with this today. We're the first start of this week. We're gonna go over this large flower and then the tall flower here. So we're gonna be moving away from the greens and into the pinks. And then Wednesday I have kind of a catch-all day. And also where I'll answer some questions. So if you have anything that you want to ask me, send me a message and I will respond to those on Wednesday. And we will also be learning lazy daisies and French knots. We'll start on these flowers and then go along here. And then we'll end the week by finishing up and doing these yellow branches. And then the stems here. So we'll spend the rest of the week working on and finishing the foliage. All right, so I think with this example, I slightly altered the technique or the stitch that we're gonna be using for this flower. We will be using color 754 for the main center flower. You can use all 6 strands or 4 strands, 4 to 6, it doesn't matter. That can be your own personal preference. And we're going to use a new stitch called a long and a short stitch. Basically, it's just filling in and kind of coloring in that flower. And I'll show you how to do that just now. But first, just to review, you're gonna pull your thread or your floss from the numbered side. You pull an arm's length away and snip. And now you don't even have to separate your floss. If you want to use all 6 strands, give you a feel for what it's like to do with all of it. Thread your needle, and then you come down here to the end, wrap it around your finger, twist, and pull, and now you have your knot. All right, so here we go. We're gonna start with this flower right here, and we're gonna be doing a long and a short stitch. Now, let's just jump right into the middle of the flower so you can see what this looks like. So we're gonna let's do a stitch about halfway up the petal. And then we're gonna come up here to the top of the petal. So essentially we're just doing 2 long stitches here in the middle of the petal. Now we'll come up right next to where we were, but we're not gonna do the same length. We're gonna do a short stitch here. Another term for this is a brick stitch. It's like you're laying the bricks to a wall. You don't have to be so precise as that, but we're just doing a line of short stitches next to a line of longer stitches. So there you go. Now there might be some gap between, so you could just kind of sneak a little stitch in between. And you can also, if you're using all 6 strands, you start to notice that the floss does handle a little bit differently. It's a little chunkier to push through or pull through your fabric. So just be careful that it doesn't twist or warp or knot on the back side of your piece. So here I'm going to do a long stitch next to those short stitches, and then I'll come back up and do another long. There, my floss kind of knotted on the back. I'll do a long stitch kind of to the side there. Again, I'm taking this loosely. It's not a brick stitch that is very precise, that they all measure the same, because this is an organic flower. I have a knot here in my floss. One tip for if you do get a knot, you find the loop and you can pull up on it, or you pull the string from the left-hand side and then the knot will just slip right out. So you can see here it's starting to create a bit of a nice texture for this flower. We have a long stitch, short, 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 and then there's a long, and now we're doing shorts and short. Again, since this is an organic shape, it can slightly vary as you go out into the middle of the flower, and then as you taper in to the end of the petal. It might alter slightly. But you know, everyone is different. You can make it your own. The goal here is just to add a bit of texture and dimension to this flower petal. And something that's a little bit more, or a different variation of this fishbone or satin stitch that we did with the leaves. I didn't want us to do the exact same thing here with the flower. So these were short stitches. I'm going to come up here and do a long, and now you can see that I'm starting to take the form of this, or the shape of this petal, and I'm kind of going at a slight angle. But again, it's 2 long stitches, and now I'll come alongside right beside here, and I'm going to do kind of an alternating stitch. Oh, that's my baby girl watching a show while I am here with you guys. Yes, Lucy. I don't know when everyone has time to, or find the time to stitch. I'm gonna try to do it as much as I can with my kids around so that they can see me being creative and making things, and be encouraged to also make and create as God, our Creator, makes and creates around us. But other times, if I have to do a bit of filming like this, it's Paw Patrol to the rescue. Okay. Okay, so here, now that I'm starting into this next bit of the petal, I'm gonna come up here and do the long stitch. And now that I have a baseline, I'm gonna fill back into here. Again, trying to alternate. I'll come to the side, almost like a checkerboard pattern. Ooh, look at that knot, Sarah girl. That's not good. Okay, you pull that back through. But yeah, you're almost like creating a checkerboard pattern, that I have the one short there in the middle. What is that piece of fuzz? And then I'll come back here and create the 2 other short stitches there. There. And then I might just come up here and do one long stitch for the length, and then do a short stitch from the middle over to there. Two short stitches there, and then maybe one more long right here. Okay, now you can start to see some of the, it's almost like a basket weave kind of patterning here. So these were 2 long stitches. So I'm going to pick up on this side now with short stitches. So I'll come to the middle of that stitch there, and then come up with, well, I guess this is kind of a long stitch on this side. But again, it's creating that alternating basket weave, checkerboard pattern where your stitches do not line up. They're not side by side. They're not satin stitches where it's a long stitch for the whole length of the petal. Instead, it's just creating a bit of a pattern here with alternating length stitches side by side, creating that sense of depth. Now I did choose to line it up there, so I'm following after that short stitch that I did previously. I'll come up here and down there. Now I'm coming up to where I've drawn the pattern in here. And if I keep stitching, I'm going to cover it up. That's fine. I'd say go ahead and start covering up. Just remember with your drawing that there'll be a leaf that will go over top of this flower. We'll go over that probably, I guess maybe on Thursday. But just that there'll be a little leaf, a little daisy or lazy daisy stitch, or detached chain stitch that comes up here and goes over at that point. This is mostly just drawn on here so you get the general idea of your lines and parameters for your stitching. And you can always feel free to change it as you go. Now, here, because we're starting to do a bit of the curve, I did a stitch that's staggered here to create more of that angle. So right here, I'll do a little stitch right there. And then I think I'm gonna do one stitch here just to kind of create the parameter or the a barrier between this petal and this petal that will start. And then just sort of eyeball it kind of around as you go back in to fill it in. Since that was a long stitch, I'm going to do 2 short stitches here. You can see how I bite my fingernails. It's terrible. Okay, so that was 2 short stitches. I'm going to do another long stitch here. And then I'm going to start kind of tapering it around. So here, I'm going to come up in the middle of that stitch or alongside and come down there. So now we're just starting to fan it out. So that was a long stitch on this side. I'm going to just meet it here. Basically, what you're going to try to do with the long and short stitch is you don't want your stitches to be absolutely next to each other in parallel, identical lines. You do want lines side by side, but you want the start and the stop of your stitches to be staggered. Does that make sense? Again, I always like to try to think of it as a basket weave or a checkerboard kind of pattern. Probably more like a checkerboard because we're not weaving these together. So there I did 3 short stitches. So now I'm going to kind of make a stitch in between those stitches there like that, and then come up right here and then down in that one, and then up here and put it down there. Then I'll come alongside this, and then I'll do 2 long stitches here. It does get a little bit trickier when you're working with a curve, but it also means that you can make this your own. We're just gradually going through and filling in these spaces. Okay, I'm going to do a short stitch here. And a short stitch here. And a short stitch here. And then I'm just going to do 1 long stitch to finish off this petal. There we go. And that is the long and the short stitch. And now I'll do a sped up version of this if you want to follow along with that.